Good morning, everyone. This is a great crowd this morning, and I think it has something to do with our new president, Biddy Martin. So I'm really, really glad you're all here. I'm Betsy Cannon-Smith, class of '84, alumni secretary for the college, and it's great to see so many familiar faces coming back year after year. I know you don't think the years are passing, but they are, and we're glad you're here with us. I'm pleased this morning to introduce Betsy Hastings Block of the class of 1987, celebrating her 25th reunion with her classmates. She will be presiding at this morning's meeting and will take us through the business of the Society of the Alumni. So welcome to all of you. Welcome to Betsy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be back here this weekend. So I'd like to call the meeting officially to order. And on behalf of the Alumni Secretary and the officers of the Society of the Alumni, I'm delighted to welcome you all back for Reunion 2012. As of this morning, there are over 2,400 alumni family and friends gathered here for the big celebration. And I invite all of you to join us for a complimentary lunch on the Valentine Quad following today's meeting. What better way to celebrate such an occasion than by recognizing some of our most senior alumni whose relationship with Amherst is a half century or more. It's a special pleasure to welcome all of you. Joining us this weekend are 6 alumni from the class of 1942, celebrating their 70th reunion. Give us a wave. Are you here? Give us a wave if you're here. In addition, we have 9 alumni from the class of 1943 here, celebrating their 69th reunion. And 8 alumni from the combined class of 1947 and 1948 are with us celebrating their 65th reunion. Welcome back. As we celebrate the return of our most senior alumni, I also want to pause and on behalf of the Society of the Alumni, extend our condolences to the family and classmates of 1952 classmate Ralph Engelsman, who unfortunately passed away on Thursday afternoon. So that was difficult news for all of us. I'd also like to add a special welcome to our newest alumni, the 441 graduates of the class of 2012, who walked across the stage and out onto the quad just 1 week ago today. So. At commencement, the college was proud to honor a member of the 50th reunion class with the Medal for Eminent Service. So please join me in congratulating George Carmody of the class of 1962. Could you please stand? Congratulations. And I will now move on to the business of the Society of the Alumni. The minutes of the 2011 annual meeting of the Society of the Alumni and the Alumni Council are here, but they will not be read unless it is the pleasure of the meeting to do so. Okay. With that said, I will now refer you to the booklet handed out and the information contained therein. All of the actions taken this morning are included in this booklet. First, thank you to all the officers and committee members of the Society of the Alumni for their service to the college over the past year. The 2011-2012 officers and committee members are all listed on page 1 of your booklet. And a special thanks to all of you in attendance today who have volunteered for, supported, and engaged with your classes and with the college. As you spot the connected stickers on name tags, be sure to get one yourself if you volunteer, give, or participate in the life of the college. And just by being here at Reunion, you're doing that. So those stickers are available down at the Alumni House. Next, please turn to and review the report of the Society of the Alumni Nominating Committee on page 2, listing the slate of nominees for 2012-2013. If you can take a peek at that list, are there any further nominations to those made by the nominating committee of the Society of the Alumni? In that case, I invite a motion that the nominations be closed and that Secretary Cannon-Smith cast 1 unanimous ballot for the election of the officers and members of the respective committees as set forth in the report of the nominating committee. Thank you. I declare the officers and committee members duly elected. And now to the results of the 2012 Alumni Trustee election. This year's election was held to fill one vacancy on the Board of Trustees. The polls closed at noon on Monday, May the 14th. Out of the 22,794 eligible voters, 2,475 cast a ballot, representing 10.9% of the eligible voters. I am delighted to share that elected to serve a full 6-year term from July 1, 2012 through June 30th, 2018, replacing the seat vacated by Laura Yurkovich of the class of 1980, is my own classmate, Raphael Campo. Very exciting news. Raphael's life of service to others will surely be an asset to our board. And he is here celebrating his 25th reunion and his new trustee role with our class. So thank you and congratulations. I'd also like to thank Tom Davis of the class of 1971 and Adrian Waits-Faines, class of 1982, for standing for election this year. It was an outstanding ballot and an extremely difficult choice. Adrian is here for her 30th reunion. Is she with us in the room? I'd love to thank her in person if I could. Next, please turn to the 2012 resolutions relating to the annual fund and the budget of alumni and parent programs. These are on pages 4, 5, and 6. If you can take a look at those. All in favor of these resolutions, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The budget resolutions are so approved. Finally, you will find a brief report on the status of the annual fund and the details of an exciting alumni fund challenge for the reunion class is also included in your booklet. Please consider making your own gift or even a second gift if you've already contributed before next Friday, as your gift will be matched dollar for dollar. It's a wonderful challenge being made by a member, I believe, of the class of 1977. And now I have the great honor of introducing our new president, Carolyn Biddy Martin. I had the opportunity to meet with and hear from President Martin earlier this year when she spoke with alumni and parents in the Philadelphia area. One of the many stops she's made to visit with members of the Amherst family around the country, and everyone left that evening truly inspired by her vision for Amherst's future. President Martin is the 19th president of our fair college, a self-described passionate advocate of access, affordability, and great education. President Martin came to Amherst last June from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she'd served as chancellor since 2008. At UW, she led successful initiatives to increase need-based financial aid, improve undergraduate education, and enhance research. A distinguished scholar of German studies, Martin started her career in 1983 as an instructor and then assistant professor of German studies and women's studies at Cornell University, earning tenure from the Ivy League institution in 1991. In 1997, Martin was appointed Senior Associate Dean in the College of Arts and Sciences, and 3 years later was named as the university's provost, a post she held for 8 years. During that time, she oversaw the construction of a $150 million life sciences building, developed the university's fundraising priorities for its $4 billion capital campaign, and implemented an ambitious financial aid initiative that replaced need-based loans with grants for all qualifying students. Raised outside Lynchburg, Virginia, in the then rural Campbell County, Martin studied English literature at the College of William & Mary. She holds a master's in German literature from Middlebury College's program in Mainz, Germany, and a PhD in German literature from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Please join me in welcoming President Martin.
Good morning, everyone. Nice weather, huh? We could be in Virginia. Thank you for that warm welcome. I'm tempted to say to you that if there are no seats left, there are 5 or 6 behind me, and I'd welcome some company up here, so don't be shy. Welcome back to campus to all of you. I hope you've been enjoying yourselves. Yes? Well, I enjoyed your tent parties last night. And I concluded that they rival some of our students' tent parties held at commencement. I'm really touched by the warmth of your welcome to me. I know that it arises out of your love for this college, and as one of you put it last night, your hope that I won't mess it up. And I'm going to try very hard not to. That's one of my aspirations. After a year here, what I would want to say to you is that your love of this college is well placed, in my opinion, and based on my experience in higher education. It's a well-placed love not only because of your own memories or your gratitude for the education you got here or your family members might have gotten here, but also because of what Amherst continues to be and what Amherst represents. Amherst represents many things to many different people. I'm going to tell you just some of the things it represents in the world of higher ed and or personally to me. So first, what does it represent in the world of higher ed? It represents quality. Above all, quality. Amherst is known for its unadulterated love of intellectual life and an unabashed reveling in intellectual intensity and rigor. The intelligence at this place among students and faculty, staff, and administrators is palpable, and it is a great pleasure to be part of it. Second, see, it's 2012 and we have a cell phone ringing right now. I say that because the second signature of Amherst, in my view, is its respect for the past and its active use of its own past. The legendary faculty, courses, students, and all the buildings without air conditioning testify to our love of the past. Maybe you all could help me persuade Jim Brassard that the chapel could use some air. What I think is most telling about Amherst at this point in the nation's history and in the history of the world is its sense of futurity. Futurity, by which I mean investment in generations to come. This is less common than one would think, I believe, in our culture, unfortunately. It's shown here in many ways, but certainly by the faculty investment in undergraduate students, in the staff who work much more than a full-time job, virtually each one of them, in order to support what the faculty and students do together. And it's also displayed in where Amherst has put its funding, where it has invested its considerable resources. I've never been at a university or a college that takes what funding it has and translates it into access and then into funding for students to undertake not just great courses with good faculty, but to undertake independent research, international travel, internships at home and abroad, to do the kind of work that yields publications, co-authored and sometimes single-authored publications, that yields also, as you know, cross-generational friendships, lifelong friendships and contacts with faculty, and also with you, as well as friendships for a lifetime, which I think is probably what has brought you back to Amherst over and over. Many of the people who think the problems of education in the nation can be solved by teaching everyone online. I say it'll be a different nation, and not a very good one, if everyone stays home, hews to tradition and convention, and sits in front of a computer. People come to college for more than the classrooms. You come to college in the United States in order to get the separation you need to become who you are, with other people, with similarly intelligent and aspirational peers. The fourth signature of Amherst, in my view, is access. It was part of its founding vision, and what's occurred here over the past couple of decades, and perhaps the past decade in particular, has ensured that Amherst is affordable for students from every background. At Cornell, which is part public, part private, and at the University of Wisconsin, which is a public flagship institution, the percentage of Pell Grant eligible students, which is a proxy for low income, hovered between 17 and 19%. At Amherst, which is one of the most prestigious institutions of higher ed in the country, the percentage of Pell Grant eligible students is between 22 and 23%. I think you and the leaders of this institution over time should be remarkably proud of that fact. But the diversity, yeah. Amherst is also representing diversity of another kind, as you know. Roughly half of the students at Amherst now are students of color and international students. Half. I know of virtually no other institution of its kind where that can be said, or that even comes close to being able to say that. And one of the greatest pleasures I've had in this first year, as I've said to some of you, is wandering around this beautiful campus and seeing clusters of students, young people, from all over the world, from every conceivable background, just hanging out together. They're not sitting and talking about their differences. They're not focusing on race or ethnicity or politics necessarily. They're just being together. And that's the goal, and Amherst has helped achieve it for this campus. That's phenomenal, and it's one of the greatest delights of being here. Now, Amherst represents the importance of natural beauty and of preserving it. It's one of the most beautiful campuses I've ever seen. It has the most beautiful, simple war memorial I think I've ever seen. Like it much better than the World War II memorial in Washington, D.C., designed by an Austrian, but that's another story altogether. I spent many of my first evenings at Amherst College taking my dog and walking to the memorial, thinking about my own father, who served in World War II from North Africa through to Dachau. And I know that there are a number of World War II vets in the audience. And I heard that you were going to sit in the front row and I was going to salute you, but you're not in the front row as far as I can tell. But I salute you anyway. It's a beautiful campus. Yeah. The setting here is extraordinary. The view of the Holyoke Range is one of the most soothing parts of the campus for me, partly because it's part of the Appalachians near where I grew up. That is, I grew up near the Appalachians, at the foot of them, but it's the only range that runs east to west in the entire Appalachian Mountains. And there's something about that that makes it captivating. I've tried to figure out why the view of the Holyoke Range is so compelling, and I've decided it's simply because intuitively we see it runs east to west. I know you don't believe me, but that's my theory. But for me, it's soothing to have access to those soft blues with which I grew up. Another one of Amherst's signatures is poetry. Its association with writing and with poetry. And of course, it's associated with Robert Frost and Emily Dickinson and Richard Wilbur and others. But it's also associated with the kind of reading that keeps poetry alive, the kind of writing and reading that condenses experience and that elicits from a careful reader everything we have, not just our intellectual capacities, but our emotional capacities and our ability to connect. Stillness. I associate stillness with Amherst, partly because of the natural beauty, the setting, partly because of the focus on thought, partly because of the quality, the sight lines. But when one is on the freshman quad here, with the sense of history that is yielded by the trees, the setting, the buildings, I think stillness is palpable even in the midst of revelry and Frisbee games. And Amherst is a place that draws out and nurtures the soul as well as the mind. This is my opinion. Ninth, athletics. We win everything. Against Williams this year, we're 25-8-1, and I fear that when I attend the NESCAC presidents' meetings, we will be known not only for the other things I've listed, but for domination in athletics. And it's a place where athletics is important, but also dealt with responsibly, where it has a place, a leadership, and a set of coaches that make it more than a worthy focus for the college, in my view. So these are some of the things that Amherst represents, and they are qualities that the world needs to have institutions represent. And we live in an era, it seems, in which people have so little faith. We have so little faith in our institutions. And angry cynicism seems to be the thing that fills the airwaves and gets the most attention. To invoke in a weird sort of way Winston Churchill about fear would say that it's angry cynicism that we have to fear the most, not the things at which everyone is angry, though they're also a problem. I hope that we can build confidence in higher ed where it seems to be lagging, and to the degree it has become a political football in this era. There are a set of questions we need to answer in higher ed, but I am one of those, for better or worse, who believes that the kind of institution that Amherst is will always have a place and will always fill a need and has always filled one. There are so many of you I've met, you are so accomplished in every conceivable walk of life. Amherst, some people sometimes say to me, is so small. What impact can it have? And my response is, size doesn't matter. No. Size doesn't matter. It's often it's really the values and the model that the institution represents and what you go on to do in the world. Amherst doesn't need to be much bigger. If we add students going forward, I wouldn't advise adding very many. The kind of institution Amherst is the institution that I think the world needs many of. Last week at commencement, I referred to a talk I had heard recently by Lieutenant General Carl Eikenberry, who is also the ambassador to Afghanistan. And I just want to dwell on it for a few minutes this morning. You may ask why. I'll try to show you why, but if you don't get it, that's all right. I would like to talk about it anyway. I heard him speak to a commission on which I'm a member in Washington about the future of the liberal arts, and he came to advocate strongly for liberal arts education. Here are some of the things that I felt I learned from Carl Eikenberry. First of all, he spoke after David Brooks. David Brooks had said, some moans. Well, I like David Brooks myself, not always, but often. And David Brooks had said to higher ed leaders in the audience or on the commission, if you want to figure out how to prepare young people today, think about what kind of nation you want and go from there. And then Eikenberry stood up and talked about what kind of nation we are and what kind of nation we need to be. And he began with a lament that Americans still know so little about the rest of the world, that so few of us know any other language, that we're innocent or ignorant of the great cultures of the world other than our own, and that we're also blind to how we're perceived in the rest of the world. Speaking from experience, he said, Americans' blind spot is not understanding how differently we're perceived now than we were even a decade ago. So then he gave some observations. He said the US economy has gone from being making up a third of the world's GDP to making up a quarter. The change of the balance of trade over the past 40 years means that imports vastly outstrip the rate of increase in exports. And China is said to be poised to become the world's largest economy by 2025. He pointed something out that I hadn't thought of, which is it will be the first time a non-Western power has had the largest economy in 500 years. Interesting. But the most serious threats to security, he said, don't come from terrorism or China's rise. They stem from problems that require multinational solutions and multidisciplinary ones, and that we're not poised to help solve. Why? He said there are three kinds of power that a major nation can exert. There's coercive power, there's remunerative power, and there's persuasive power. And unilateral action of a coercive sort in a world that is as interdependent as ours is a recipe, long-term, he said, for decline. And using money is not as feasible as it once was. He quoted Churchill. Churchill makes two appearances here. "We've run out of money, now we have to think." When we think, according to Eikenberry, we realize we need a deep bench of professionals and citizens across sectors who are grounded in language and cultural expertise, who have education that is, and I quote, long, comprehensive, and expensive. Long, comprehensive, and expensive. And the Army spends a lot of money sending its officers to the Stanfords, the Harvards, and the Yales for the regional language and cultural expertise that they have. Coercion and payments are not our greatest sources of strength long term. The power of persuasion and the respect of the rest of the world are. This is Carl Eikenberry, not Biddy Martin. The US has had strength, he argued, because we have been a model that speaks for itself. We have been a culture that speaks for itself and its values, and that has been emulated by other countries. But that, he says, has changed over the past decade or over a longer period because of unilateral action, because of acts of misconduct, because of political gridlock, because of the economic downturn. He says our reputation is tarnished. But like so many other people who spoke to us at this commission, he's not pessimistic about the future of the United States. He just wants us to get to the work that needs to be done and do it together. It's possible, he said, to be so powerful that you're completely ignorant of the perspectives of other people, and that over time can't be sustained. The consequences of relative ignorance are serious. And he ended his talk by emphasizing art and music and the interactions between American troops and Afghani tribal leaders over jazz and art. Personal interactions, face to face, between people who showed mutual respect and curiosity. So what does this have to do with Amherst? For Carl Eikenberry, it has to do with the kind of education we need to be offering. It has to do with preserving the liberal arts. It has to do with building curiosity and intellectual confidence and being in the world as it is, as it is. This relatively small institution in Western Massachusetts is not just in Western Massachusetts. It draws its students and faculty from all over the world. It sends you out to all corners of the world. It has an incredible impact. This place and a sense of place is an important touchstone, but the impact is much, much greater, and we can make it even greater. We can extend our reach in a number of ways that we should pursue, including using new technologies, including using your time and effort to an even greater extent, drawing you in to mentor and interact with our students, to give them the experience they need while they're still here, bring the world to Amherst students. We can take better advantage of the diversity we have on the campus. It's a beautiful thing, But do students graduate actually being better informed about what's going on in Ethiopia by virtue of the fact that we have 6 students here from Ethiopia? I don't know. The students say yes and no, but we need to explore it. I think we can extend our reach by staying true to Amherst's values and its quality, and caring about liberal arts, caring about academic rigor, caring about intellectual integrity, feathering in technology where it belongs and where it can advance the mission, but not giving ourselves over to it completely. People talk about technology and its change, how it will disrupt higher ed as it has disrupted everything else. I always think to myself, really? Does technology operate completely free of human will? I don't think so. Do we want the Amhersts of the world to be preserved? I do. I want the nation that has long supported the kind of education that the Amhersts of the world provide. I don't want the world where people sit at home, stay with their own kind, and learn online. That's a great, it holds out great promise for access to education for more people in more venues over more time. I think online education is an incredible asset of which we should make good use. But the day that there's no more residential liberal arts education that brings young people together from all over the world with people they would otherwise never have met, in whose neighborhoods they would never live, the day we get rid of that, we get rid almost completely of the melting pot that the US has been. Look at the data on neighborhoods and neighborhood segregation. Okay, enough said. I love Amherst. I feel privileged to be here. I'm going to try hard not to mess it up. And, and I think you'll help me by constantly asking the kinds of probing questions that you've already started to ask me. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? I think we have plenty of time to hear from you, so please don't be shy. Yes?
Indicating that you understand and appreciate what makes Amherst unique and what its strengths are. I understand that after the new science building is built, there will be a new comprehensive planning process, at least for some of the buildings on campus that have gotten a bit older. I also understand that it's too early to tell how it's going to turn out since you're just completing it, but could you speak to 2 things as part of that process? First of all, the sort of vision that's emerging for it, and second of all, obviously many institutions go through this process. What do you think will be uniquely Amherst about the process that you're going through?
Did everybody hear the entire question? I figured that was going to happen, so I'm going to I'll repeat it for you, but tell me if I get it wrong. First, he graciously said that I seemed to get what's special about Amherst, and then went on to the real question, which was really an important one, and that is he understands. What's your name? Nice to meet you. That we're going to undertake a comprehensive planning process, especially for facilities on campus once the Science Center is up. And even though we can't possibly know exactly how it will turn out, he'd like to know if there's a vision that's emerging and how it will relate to the uniqueness of Amherst. Is that a fair reproduction? Good. So I don't think we'll be waiting until the Science Center is up, because that's 5 years from now. So what we want to do is begin a long-range planning exercise starting this next year that will yield something a little more integrated, that is, will help us integrate our aspirations for academics, student life, and facilities, as well as the many other things that our faculty and students and staff aspire to doing. So if I were to say now what I imagine happening, you'll come back in a year and say, that's not what happened. Or but you will, I hope, get used to me and forgive me for the following quality I have. I'm pretty willing to answer most any question, even one that requires that I say something that's probably not true. No. I'm kidding. Requires me to say something that may not come true, which is different. So here's what I think we have in mind. The social dorms, which I know some students love, and you may be among them, but the rest of us don't think they're very nice, and so the social dorms have to come down. Partly, yeah. The social dorms will be affected by the Science Center in any case, but they need to come down, and we need residence halls that are adequate to this next several decades or longer. And indeed, to the extent that we're going to have to justify the value of a residential liberal arts education increasingly going forward, how students live and what that enables them to learn is a key part of how one wants to think about the liberal arts. So I think the immediate next step will be to think about the social dorms, to think about the East Campus as a whole and what sort of mixed use area that might be. My dream, and this is, so that none of that will fail to come true, I think. It's a question of timing. But here's something more speculative. Dean Call and I are dreaming of the possibility of a sort of arts and humanities corridor that might incorporate some planning for the Mead, the library, and our humanities departments. And I can't tell you what shape that will take. I'll only tell you that the humanities and the arts are the cornerstone of a great liberal arts education along with cutting-edge science, and we aim to do something that will enhance those areas as well. So that's... Yes. You. Yeah.
Starting at Amherst, we went to Amherst, and you find there was a required core curriculum for new students. Has any thought been given in reevaluating whether the abolition of the core curriculum was a good idea and the possibility of reintroducing a core curriculum?
Well, I knew that was coming, and so I have a very long answer. Okay, then the short answer is no. I was just thinking that a core curriculum of required courses could be the equivalent of coercive power, and we need persuasive power. We are using persuasive power here at Amherst. I've heard so many great stories about the core curriculum, and not just stories about the breadth of the education that it ensured, but the fact that you went through it together, which is a form of community building that probably can't be beat. The reason I say there's not discussion about bringing it back is because I think we're in a different moment now, and I think there's something different that's required. I think the college's investment in faculty advising is the key to ensuring that students put together a curriculum that makes sense, that's both broad and deep. I also think from the data we have that there's no great trend for students to concentrate in only one set of disciplines. If you look at the courses taken, there are some students who choose to put most of their course availability into a particular set of disciplines, but by and large, there's breadth in what the students, together with their faculty advisors, choose. And I think the organization for students of their curriculum around the kinds of questions they want to ask, that they want to pursue, that they can develop independently to some degree, is, in this day and age, a better way to organize their education. Now, I have been at places with general ed requirements, not core curriculum per se, but requirements where neither the student nor the faculty want to be in the class. I think we avoid that here by giving students the burden and the freedom of designing a curriculum that makes sense for them. In that sense, it's part of their growth, and I think as long as they're not doing it in the absence of close interaction with faculty, that is choosing willy-nilly or choosing only art classes, I think it's actually tailor-made for the circumstances in which we live. But we track it carefully, and if we were to reach a point where it seemed as though fewer students were taking, say, math and science, we'd be worried. But the truth is that our enrollments in math and science are up, and we're having to add faculty in math, for example, in order to accommodate the numbers of students who want to take it. So there's no trend that looks worrisome, and I think the faculty and the students react with enthusiasm to the notion that it's their responsibility, with guidance, to put together a course of study. So I don't foresee a core curriculum. Now, having said all of that, part of this planning process will focus on the curriculum, and we will ask ourselves whether our students are getting what they need out of the coursework and the extracurricular work they're doing. So stay tuned. I said no is the short answer, but maybe in 4 years I'll have a different one for you. Yeah.
It's my understanding that a large portion of the Amherst faculty is going to turn over.
Yes.
I haven't heard much talk about it, and I'm curious what you envision.
Yeah. So the question was, yes, of course. I'm sorry, I don't think I did that last time. Just yell at me. The question was, is it the case that there is a large turnover in the Amherst faculty? And having not heard that much about it, you are?
Scott David.
Scott.
Be your class of 85.
85. Oh, you shouldn't be here. Well, we're... Next question? No. Welcome. Class of 85, an interloper. So, having not heard much about the turnover in faculty, he wonders what we're thinking about it. Yes, had I gone through a list of priorities, it would have been number one. Our focus is heavily on the turnover in faculty, and it is true that Amherst is facing many retirements, and so are all the other institutions in the country, because of the hiring bulge in the 60s has now become the retirement bulge. And in some of those intervening decades, there was little hiring because of bad economies, and so there's also a gap between the most advanced faculty and some of the younger. So we're doing two things. One, we are working, and Dean Call is the lead on this, of course. We're working closely with the departments in advance of their searches to emphasize the importance both of quality and diversity. We're allowing some senior hires, which is unusual for Amherst, so hiring at the already tenured rank in some areas where we need to build strength and quality more quickly than we could if we hired everyone as brand new PhDs. And also because we're looking for those faculty who will take the place of some of our legendary scholar, scientist teachers who will depart all too soon in many cases. So the competition is fierce. Despite the economic woes and despite all the doomsday predictions you hear about higher ed, it's not only in the United States that there's a lot of hiring occurring, but also, as you know, around the rest of the world, where higher ed is growing, in China, in Latin America, Brazil in particular. The governments are investing heavily in higher education, And when I've been in China, for example, and spoken with the Minister of Education, he said to me directly, we're going to bring back all of those native Chinese who were educated in the US and are teaching at your universities, and we're going to give them offers they can't refuse to teach at Tsinghua or Beida or Shanghai Jiaotong or one of the other great universities. And I mean, it was a friendly, it was a friendly exchange. But my point is just the competition is fierce. And we at Amherst have to be really careful that we're not just getting great researchers, but that we're getting great researchers who will invest in undergraduate students what the faculty at Amherst traditionally has. And that's not easy. So it's the weighing of teaching and the degree to which people think of teaching as an art that requires as much intellectual creativity as research that we have to find. And so we're focused very heavily on it. And we had a good year this year. The Dean, would you like to hear about our hires for this year? Yes, Dean Call, come forward.
We were very fortunate this year. We searched for 12 new tenure line positions and actually hired 13, which is not usually the way it works. But we were able to move a little more quickly when some terrific opportunities opened up. So for example, we were able to hire 2 scholars in English and American Studies who will bring Native American Studies to the college and who are themselves Native American. This was a rare opportunity and one that I don't think we would have succeeded in if we had not been able to move to bring both of them together. And I must tell you one other story that I'm very partial to, as it involves a mathematician. We have hired what may be the only Rwandan PhD in mathematics given this year to come to the college. Someone who was a refugee, really made his way through Senegal, Florida, Belgium, and is in fact probably our first hire in mathematics who holds a patent. So we're broadening also our perspective in terms of the fields that we represent. So, thank you.
We also made 2 hires in faculty who focus on East Asia and China in particular. So we're trying to build out in the curricular areas that our students need and want, and that we do as well. By the way, I'd like to take the opportunity, now that Greg has helped out, to recognize the entire senior staff who have done the work for many, many, many years, long before I came here, of ensuring that Amherst is what it is. And if they could stand and be applauded, that would be great. Yeah. Yes.
I'm in the class of.
Okay, now we have 3 of you, and I called on you, but I'm coming to you next. Okay.
Douglas Wilbur, class of 57, 86, and 87, a little of each. My dad is also here from the class of 57, that's why I sort of include myself also. Anyway, I appreciate your many eloquent comments about the strengths of Amherst College, and I agree with many of them. I wondered if you could also, as a balance, speak to what you perceive as the very few weaknesses of Amherst College.
Tiny number.
Tiny.
Yeah.
In comparison to other institutions that might be on your agenda to address during your tenure.
Yeah. Did everyone hear the question? He agrees with the articulation of Amherst's strengths, but wonders, in the interest of balance, whether I could talk about its very, 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 very few weaknesses. That's an interesting question. Sure. You know what's going through my head? What's going through my head is don't you hate it in the news when they're always doing the on the one hand and the other hand, and both hands are so extreme you can hardly stand it? Okay, but you're not doing that, and I'm not saying that you are. I just had an association. Yeah, no, it's a really good and legitimate question. So here's what I'd say. It's not so much weaknesses, but it's areas of which we could take better advantage. First of all, I think we're behind the curve in exploring the use of technology. Our classrooms are not enough of them are equipped with the kinds of technology that would enable us to do what we could do and what we should do. But I'll give you an example of a beginning. We're funding what faculty are calling a global classrooms initiative, where they will use technology and we will provide the support they need to bring students and faculty, and these connections are based on their own research connections, from other countries into Amherst classrooms and vice versa, with the opportunity perhaps also of having the students travel at the end of the experience to meet one another. This is a great thing, but we need to get quickly up to date in the positive, the benign, and even the promising uses of technology. We also need to extend our reach. I think when it comes to communications, Amherst is a little bit like Wisconsin, understated, loath to brag about itself, which is a wonderful quality. The only problem with it is that in 2012, if you're not making an effort to communicate what it stands for, then you're losing an opportunity to have Amherst have an impact in the world of the sort it could. So I think we need a stronger communications function. I think we need to get more of our students abroad. We do a relatively speaking, a good job of getting students abroad, either for a year, a semester, a summer, a 4-week internship, but they need to do it more. They need to get out into the world. And I think there are ways for us to provide incentives. I think the Center for Community Engagement has been a great development at Amherst. It seems to be flourishing. There's greater faculty and student interest in it over the course of 5 years. It's growing. And I think having students have opportunities to work in communities doing the kinds of things that need to be done, but have it integrated into their academic experience instead of simply having it be volunteer work, which is also admirable, but not the same as making that work in the community part of their intellectual enrichment. I think that can be enhanced as we go forward. Those are some of the areas, and I think just a deeper interest, more persistent and consistent interest in what's going on elsewhere. We have a bit of a bubble thing. I've actually become very fond of the bubble. But there are ways in which we need to extend ourselves and bring the world in for the good of our students. We're building up resources in career advising. We owe our students even more. And we're working on an alumni network program, Betsy Cannon-Smith and her office, that some of you probably know about, but the real heart of the program is not yet launched. You're going to be asked to participate, but getting our students better connected with you and with the world in a broader sense is really critical for them, and we owe it to them. So those are some of the things I'd say. Finally, we're administratively very thin, and that's, I'm sure most think, a good thing. We're not spending a lot of money on administration. There's not a lot of overhead. But there's some areas, student life is one, and communications is another, where we need to do a little better. Finally, it's a place that is deeply devoted to equity and fairness and treating people more or less the same in all things. And I would say a little more of a culture that rewards merit while holding to the important value of equity would help Amherst continue to succeed going forward. I don't know if I should have added that one, but that's just what I think. So, no, you, yes. I'll come back.
Actually, my question is related related to your next to the last remark about administration. Is it true that you're creating the position of provost at Amherst, and if so, why do you think this is needed?
Yes, good question. Did everybody hear it? And is it true that I'm creating the position of provost? And if so, why do I think we need it? Yes, I am doing such a thing. And and I think it's needed because I think what I just said, that we're administratively thin, that we could do a much better job of integrating across the different domains, student life, faculty, affairs, facilities and grounds. We need somebody who can get out of the weeds, which is where most of us tend to be because we're administratively thin, and help think strategically, plan strategically and continually, not just sporadically when something happens that requires a little planning, and also someone who can help the dean and me in our efforts to diversify the faculty. So it's an integrative aim that we are trying to fulfill. Yes, and then I have over here and somebody over here. I'm not doing a great job of keeping track, but I'm going to come back to you. Yes.
So last Sunday on 60 Minutes, they had an interview with Peter Thiel, one of the co-founders of eBay.
Yeah.
And in that segment, they mentioned that Connie attended college since 1980, and I'm class of 77, it's gone up fivefold here in the United States. Since my time here, it's attending Amherst has gone up about 12-fold.
Yeah.
Okay, so what here you're adding is administrative account. And what concerns me is what is Amherst doing in the, we'll say, your peers in the education community to try to bring in the cost of education in line with the cost of increases across society instead of mimicking the cost of healthcare.
Right. So the question is, was it CNN? 60 Minutes? 60 Minutes did a show on the rate of increase of tuition in higher ed generally, and you're asking the question, what are we doing? What is higher ed as a sector doing? Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions, and it's unfortunately a complicated answer. I think of everything as being very complicated, so I apologize in advance. Here's my problem with the way the media is presenting this. There is no higher ed sector. It is so differentiated by virtue of having become so market-driven that when people talk about higher ed, I don't know what they're talking about. Now, has tuition grown at a very fast rate, way outstripping inflation at most, especially top 50, top 100 institutions, four-year institutions generally? Yes. And what drives the costs? What's the answer to that? Labor. It is one of the most labor-intensive industries anywhere. And here's the question about why it might go up more than inflation. So you bring in a young assistant professor, the best in her field, anywhere in the country, and you say, come to Amherst. We'll give you a very nice starting salary, but when you leave 30, 40 years later, your salary will never have increased in value because we're not going to raise anything above the level of inflation. That's the problem in a nutshell. So the question is, do you want to become less labor intensive? I think one wants to cut administrative costs. One wants to cut some of the luxuries that have become part of the horse race in higher ed and things like student life. Do you want a different faculty-student ratio? Because that's what it comes down to. Yes?
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
When I was here, fewer than 50% of the faculty were tenured. I believe that number is probably closer to 70 or 75%.
Right.
We have a unique opportunity, a window now, when we're replacing faculty members, non-tradition tenure.
Right.
Every other business in the world deals with the same issue that you deal with, and we don't have that issue.
But no other business is like ours. Okay, here's the thing. No. You know, I know what you're saying. I respect it. Do we have a challenge that we've got to try and resolve in higher ed? Yes. So I want to grant you that. But I also want to say this. If you want your children, or the other people's children, so I don't have children, I have nieces and nephews, and I care about all of your children and grandchildren. And that's what we should be doing, is caring about people's children. If we want them to be taught face to face and have the kinds of personal relationships they develop with scholars and teachers, then we have to pay for it. We don't have to have that. But my entire talk was aimed at preserving it. Can we, over time, build in the use of technology, decrease to some degree, even significantly, the number of faculty relative to students as a consequence of teaching certain things differently? That may well be the case. And we're holding a tight discipline on our FTEs. This is the first place I've ever been where we report at every board meeting on the number of FTEs at the college. And we watch those as the board does, like hawks. So if I say I'm going to add a provost, everyone scurries to figure out what the FTE count means as a consequence of that. Did that occur at Wisconsin? No, honestly. Did it occur at Cornell? Also not to the same degree. This is a pretty disciplined, administratively thin, more or less frugal place. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. I think you've always liked it that way, and apart from the air conditioning, I like it that way too. But it's expensive. But remember this about Amherst College. Over 50%, between 50 and 60% of our students are on financial aid. The average financial aid package is $46,000 or more for each one of them. We do not package loans. If students graduate from Amherst with debt, it's because families have decided to take out non-subsidized loans, or students have, for pocket money. Amherst goes so far, I've never seen a place like it. Students who are on financial aid can go to the Dean of Students, and do, or the financial aid office, and get the money they need to go home when a family member dies, to go to the dentist if they can't pay for it, to do virtually anything that they can't afford to do. I've never seen anything like it. Amherst puts its money where its mouth is. And I don't know how to reduce the cost in the short term really significantly without changing the nature of the institution. Here's a story I want to tell you that really moved me. We have 2 custodians here who saved enough money to have their child go to Amherst College. And when the application was read, the assumption was these will be Pell-eligible student. Nope. No. This student doesn't need full financial aid because these 2 custodians saved enough money to send their child to Amherst. I don't know how they did it, but I wish we would also, when we talk about the increasing cost of higher ed, I wish we would think back to the days when everybody's parents hadn't borrowed too much money for big houses and were actually saving it to ensure that the next several generations could succeed. So I think we're all responsible for this. We're all... I'm just saying, we have a problem in higher ed, and we're all responsible for it because of the way we've lived. It's not that higher ed can solve it on our own. If you look to us to solve the whole problem of what the culture has gone to doing, we won't be able to without changing fundamentally how people are educated. Maybe we should, and certainly 25 years from now, it's going to look really different. And I think we are responsible for shaping that difference so that even if it's much more radical than I might like standing here today, it's great, whatever it is. So I hope you all will keep pushing us on this. I really do. And I know you will. Yes. We are supporting the establishment of an online press, Amherst Press. This is really creative, very innovative idea. It's based in part on the really severe reduction in the number of outlets for published work, especially in the humanities and social sciences and in the arts, but also on the notion that we can be the first liberal arts college to establish a press that will assure the quality of what's published online and make a name for Amherst for making available really top-notch scholarly work. So that's the purpose of the press, and we're working hard to get it launched. I think it will be a great thing for the college. Yeah. One more question? I don't know who. I'm sorry. Who was first? Simple question. Yeah.
And beauty to me is associated with heaven. Did you have any?
Did everyone hear this? The primary assertion was beauty is associated with femininity, right? And he wants to know, therefore, if the absence of cars at the back of Johnson Chapel was my idea. Honestly, I think we do have cars, don't we? Not this weekend. Not this weekend. I think it's special for you that we don't have cars.